papers is the Business Day's political writer, Theto Mahlakoana. Theto, good morning. Thank you so much for always being available. Some very interesting stories going on. I believe you feel quite passionate about the Edcon crashes. Owners of Edgar's warns of liquidation, loss of about 140,000 jobs and closure of stores. You obviously, of course, also report on labor matters. How significant is this? What does this mean for our retail industry?
Firstly, it's the jobs impact. It's unsurmountable. 140,000 jobs is quite important in this economy. Where else are you going to find an infrastructure or a company as big as Edcon to be able to absorb that kind of labor? And not only that, but it's been a long time coming. Edcon has been in a lot of trouble for a long time, but the fact that they're speaking not only liquidation, but they're basically begging from property companies to say to them that meet us halfway so that we can work on securing this 2 billion rand loan from either the PIC with the combination of our owners. They're basically in trouble. This is crunch time, and I think whether the PIC responds positively to them will be influenced by, say, the muscle of the likes of COSATU and the Public Servants Association, who claim to be championing the use of workers' money for the improvement of workers' lives. Because this is the one case where I believe that if you can't save 140,000 jobs by relying on the funds of the PIC, then what else do you have that's sort of a big pocket for?
Absolutely.
You know, but as you make the point you make about it having been coming for a long time is absolutely right. And the question the PIC would also have to answer is there a business case for saving this company? Because I don't know. I mean, I remember when I came back to South Africa in the mid-90s, Edgar's, as it was then, was quite a thrusting company. The stores were pleasant to go into, and then it got taken over by private equity players. I don't know if you remember. What happens with private equity is they borrow a lot of money, and the only way to get a return out of the company is to cut costs. And so the stock quality at Edgar's just became unbearably boring and dull, and the shops were boring and dull. And so nobody started, nobody went. Woolworths steamed ahead and did its thing. And I don't know whether look, it's 40,000 direct jobs, I think,
and 100 indirect.
I don't know whether you can. I don't know whether you can save it. Honestly, don't. I mean, there's got to be a business plan. There's obviously a rationale for the. I mean, the workers are in a terrible situation, but Edgar's is a boring store.
That's one of the biggest challenges, that they have not managed to keep up with the times, and it's a weakness they've acknowledged.
Spend the money to do so.
Yes.
Because they try to. What do they own? I mean, Edgar's owns Clicks.
Yes.
Does it? I think.
No, it's the Red Square range, which was put back into the stores, which is costing them a lot of money Jets as well.
The CNA, I think it might be Clicks.
CNA, which is now mooted to be shutting down. So it's quite a travesty, I think, that comes at a time when we're looking at a lot of workers who will not be getting salaries, I think, at the end of the end of the year, during the festive season, due to strikes and due to a myriad of other issues. But I think this is devastating.
No, it's a terrible thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, talking about workers in Christmas, I mean, the people at Ndalo Media, so this
Yes.
is
Absolutely.
Elle magazine finished. They haven't been paid since November.
I think the reality of the deep crisis in our economy is beginning to set in now, and the fact that people who thought that they had jobs for life, for example, or for a very long time, is in fact, setting in. But let's move to the other headline. Peter and I were talking with Samkele and with Zianda about the ANC list chaos. Now, you've obviously been following this as well. What do you think was the tipping factor for pushing this conference to a day before the January 8th statement has to be made?
You know, it's quite interesting how, I don't know how they think they're going to be able to do it, firstly, from just a practical, logistical point of view, right? Because you need to be able to get everybody to the conference and complete that work of the day and move on to the next project, right? So it's quite interesting that they chose that date, but for me, I still don't think that the issues they're trying to mitigate can be mitigated in this kind of space of time, because I imagine that they want to allow the committee to be able to deal with each and every individual case, to be able to prevent, for example, interdicts and other litigations that usually follow ANC conferences and gatherings of this nature. So you are trying to sort of prevent the worst, but at the same time you might have given yourself a little bit too little time, but you still cannot postpone it indefinitely because you have this pressure of time ahead of the elections. So it's quite interesting, and I think, I mean, the chat you had with Samkelo and Zianda was quite informative and quite thorough, but as well, I think the bigger question for me is the fact that you are still here. Given the amount of momentum and energy you invested into NASREC, into this idea of building unity, you are still stuck here where there's a question around why you have, for example, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, who is nominated as number 2 instead of Didi Mamuza. You are still stuck here. It feels a bit too pedestrian for the kind of challenge that's coming ahead in the elections.
The more they say the same. The same thing applies to Pule Mabe. He's now basically fighting back, apparently, against these allegations of sexual harassment. And he claims that his accuser has lodged the complaint against him because she was caught faking qualifications. And does that mean that because she is not as qualified as she, that he's entitled then to abuse her in some way?
Exactly.
If you don't have matric, you're vulnerable.
So if you don't have an education, if you're a worker, you can actually be preyed upon. I mean, what illogical nonsense is this?
It's the entitlement. It's gone on for a very long time in a society that him saying that does not even strike as particularly a privileged power position to be able to just even say that. When someone has laid such a serious allegation against you, for you to reduce it to that, I can't imagine that having someone say you crept into their bed in the middle of the night, invading your most personal space, can even come to par with you saying you're doing all of this and you're besmirching this man's name because you are just protecting this big scandal. And in the article, she explains that she had not paid off the fees, which you know that is a very real issue in society. So I think that it's quite problematic, and I'm very glad you had the conversation you had earlier around gender, around patriarchy and so on, because this I think for me demonstrates the kind of power dynamic that we've had that has been unchallenged, and that's why they can do that.
Theto, thank you so very much. The time just flies by when you're having fun. That's about what we have time for. You've had your fix for the week. Take care and see you again next time.